The Spokane River glinted under a pale October sky, its current steady despite the chill settling over the city. David Larson sat in his recliner, the living room dim except for the flicker of a football game he wasn't watching. At 52, he built a quiet life, new wife, new home, a fresh start after a divorce that had fractured his family 2 decades ago. His daughter, Lisa, had been a casualty of that split, her teenage years marked by slammed doors and bitter silences. They hadn't spoken in 10 years, not since she moved to Seattle, leaving David to assume she'd built a life of her own. The phone rang, slicing through the quiet. David glanced at the caller ID, Judy, his older sister, calling from Coeur d'Alene. He sighed, expecting a nudge about visiting her grandkids. David, Judy's voice was tight, not her usual warmth. It's Lisa. She's gone. A car accident last night. The words hit like a punch, stealing his breath. Lisa, 27, his only child, gone. Gone, he repeated, his voice a stranger's. Judy's pause was heavy. There's more. She had a son. Ben, 5 years old. He's in foster care now. David's mind spun. A grandson. Lisa had never mentioned a child. He hadn't even known her address, just vague rumors of Seattle. I didn't know, he said, his throat dry. Judy's tone sharpened, cutting through his shock. You didn't want to know, David. She tried reaching out, but you were too busy with your new life. The accusation stung, raw and true. He let Lisa drift, thinking time would mend the gap. When does a parent stop being a parent, he wondered, the question one he couldn't answer alone. Karen, his wife of 3 years, walked in, her blonde hair in a neat ponytail, her nurse's scrubs crisp from the laundry. Who's that, she asked, catching the strain on his face. David muted the phone. Judy. Lisa, she passed away. There's a kid, her son. Karen's green eyes narrowed, her posture stiffening. A kid? You never said Lisa had a kid. David shook his head, still processing. I didn't know. He unmuted Judy, who was mid-sentence. The social worker needs a decision, David. Ben's got no one else. Lisa's boyfriend left years ago. David's throat tightened. A decision, Judy, I've never met this boy. Judy's voice softened, but it carried an edge. He's your grandson, David. Would you really let him grow up with strangers? The question hung, heavy with judgment. Would you turn away a child who's yours by blood? David's silence was answer enough for now. He ended the call, promising to think it over. Karen crossed her arms, her voice sharp. What's she want you to do? David rubbed his temples, the weight settling in. Take the kid in. He's 5. Karen's laugh was brittle, cutting. Take him in, David, we're not his family. I didn't sign up for this. We've got our life, our plans, our savings. Send him to foster care, they'll find him a good home. Her words were practical, echoing David's own doubts, but they felt cold, like a door slamming shut. Lisa's son, David said quietly, testing the words. Karen's jaw tightened. Lisa, who you hadn't seen in a decade. You don't owe her, David. Or him. Her logic was sound. His construction company was finally stable, their retirement fund growing. A child would unravel it all. But the idea of Ben, alone in a system David knew little about, gnawed at him. Could you live with yourself, knowing you walked away from your own? He pushed the thought down, not ready to face it. The next morning, Judy arrived, her SUV crunching gravel in the driveway. At 58, her graying hair was cropped short, her eyes fierce with purpose. Over coffee, she laid out the details. Lisa had been a single mom, juggling 2 jobs, raising Ben in a cramped Seattle apartment. The accident was a head-on collision, no fault of her own, leaving Ben unharmed but orphaned. "He's a sweet boy," Judy said, sliding her phone across the table. The photo showed a small kid with Lisa's brown curls and wide, searching eyes. David's chest ached. He saw Lisa at 5, clinging to his hand at the park. "You can't just walk away," Judy said, her voice steady but unyielding. "What kind of man leaves his grandson to foster care?" Karen, sitting opposite, scoffed. "The kind who didn't know he existed." "Judy, we're not equipped. I'm 45, working 12-hour shifts. David's got his business. This isn't fair." Judy's eyes flashed. "Fair, tell that to Ben, who's got no one." The air crackled, 2 women staking their ground, David caught between. He stayed quiet, his mind a tangle of guilt and practicality. Karen's life with him was ordered, predictable, no kids, no chaos. But Judy's photo of Ben burned in his memory, those eyes asking questions he couldn't ignore. "What would you do if a child's future rested on your choice?" He sipped his coffee, the bitter taste mirroring his thoughts. That afternoon, David drove to Riverside Park, needing space. Spokane's streets were quiet, the river's murmur a faint comfort. He thought of Lisa, her pigtails, her teenage defiance, the silence after she left. He tried calling once, years ago, but she hung up, her voice cold. Had he given up too soon? When does a parent's duty end? He wished someone could tell him. Back home, Karen was waiting, her arms crossed, her voice low. "You're not seriously considering this, are you?" David met her gaze, his resolve unsteady but forming. "I need to see him, Karen. Just once." Her face hardened, her words an ultimatum. "If you bring that kid here, David, I'm not staying." The threat landed, sharp and final, but David's thoughts were with a boy he'd never met, a boy who might change everything. The Spokane air carried a bite as David pulled into the parking lot of a low brick building, its sign reading Sunrise Family Services. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale. 2 days had passed since Judy's call, and the photo of Ben, those curls, those eyes hadn't left his mind. Karen's ultimatum echoed too, "I'm not staying." She'd barely spoken since, her silence a wall David didn't know how to breach. But he was here, against her wishes, to meet a boy who might be his grandson. Would you walk into a stranger's life, knowing it could cost you your own? Inside, the foster home smelled of disinfectant and instant coffee. A social worker, Ms. Carter, greeted him, her smile kind but professional. "Ben's in the playroom," she said, leading him down a hall. David's boots echoed on the linoleum, each step heavier than the last. He hadn't been around kids in years. Lisa's childhood was a distant memory, blurred by fights and regrets. What did a 5-year-old need? What could he offer? The playroom was bright, cluttered with toys and crayon drawings taped to the walls. Ben sat at a small table, stacking blocks, his brown curls falling over his forehead. He looked up, and David froze. It was Lisa, her eyes, her cautious tilt of the head. "Ben, this is David," Ms. Carter said softly. "He's family." Ben's gaze held no recognition, just curiosity. "Do you like trucks?" he asked, holding up a plastic fire engine. David nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, Trucks are great. He sat, awkward in the tiny chair, and Ben pushed the toy toward him. They played in silence, the clatter of blocks filling the void. Ben's small hands moved with focus, but his glances at David were quick, searching. What does a child see when he looks at a stranger who is supposed to be family? David wanted to ask, to know if Ben felt the weight of this moment too. Ms. Carter stepped out, giving them space. "Where's my mom?" Ben asked suddenly, his voice small. David's heart sank. He'd been told Ben knew Lisa was gone, but the question cut deep. "She's not here anymore," David said, fumbling. "But she loved you a lot." Ben's lip quivered, but he nodded, stacking another block. David's chest ached. He'd failed Lisa, and now her son was asking questions he couldn't answer. Back home, Karen was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with sharp, deliberate cuts. "How was it?" she asked, not looking up. David set his keys down, choosing his words carefully. "He's a good kid. Looks like Lisa." Karen's knife paused. "And you saw him?" Now what her tone was ice, daring him to cross a line. David leaned against the counter. "I don't know, Karen. He's alone. I can't just walk away." "Could you turn your back on a child who looks like your own?" Karen set the knife down, her eyes hard. "You're choosing him over us. I told you, David, I'm not raising someone else's kid. If you take him, I'm gone." The words landed like a slap, but David saw fear behind her anger, fear of losing the life they'd built. He wanted to argue, to say Ben wasn't someone else, but doubt crept in. Was he ready to upend everything for a boy he'd just met? Judy called that evening, her voice urgent. "What did you think of Ben?" David hesitated, glancing at Karen's closed bedroom door. "He's like Lisa." But Karen's not on board. Judy's sigh was heavy. "Karen doesn't get a vote. He's your blood, David. Lisa would want you to step up." Then, quieter, she added, "She tried to find you, you know. Sent letters, called. You never answered." David's stomach dropped. "Letters?" When Judy's voice was blunt. 5 years ago, when Ben was born. You were too busy with Karen." The revelation hit hard. David remembered those years, newly married, focused on his business, pushing Lisa's calls to voicemail. Had he ignored her pleas? "What would you do if you missed a chance to reconnect with your child?" he asked Judy to send the letters, needing proof. The next day, a package arrived, 3 envelopes, Lisa's handwriting faded but unmistakable. "Dad, I need you," one began. "I'm pregnant, scared. Please call." David's hands shook. He hadn't opened them, hadn't known. He confronted Karen, holding the letters. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lisa reached out. Karen's face paled. "I didn't know about letters, David. You never checked the mail back then. Don't blame me." Her defensiveness rang hollow, and David wondered if she'd seen them, dismissed them. "Can you trust someone who might hide your past?" The question lingered, unanswered. That night, David lay awake, Lisa's words looping in his mind. Ben's face, her face, haunted him. Karen slept in the guest room, her absence a warning. Judy's voice echoed, "He's your grandson." But Karen's was louder, "I'm gone." David stared at the ceiling, torn between a boy who needed him and a life he'd fought to build. "What price would you pay to right a wrong you didn't know you made?" Spokane's morning fog clung to the streets, muting the city's pulse as David drove to the public library. Lisa's letters, tucked in his jacket, felt heavier than their weight. He'd read them all, her pleas for help, her fear as a new mom, her hope he'd care. Each word was a reminder of his absence, a father who'd chosen silence over struggle. Now, with Ben in foster care and Karen's ultimatum looming, David needed answers about Lisa's life. What would you do to understand a child you'd lost? The library was quiet, its microfiche machine humming in a corner. David had called Judy for details: Lisa's last address, her jobs, anything to piece together her years. Judy's voice had been sharp. You should be asked when she was alive. But she'd given him enough. Lisa had lived in Seattle's Rainier Valley, worked as a barista and night cleaner, raising Ben alone. David searched online archives, finding a Seattle Times obituary: Lisa Larson, 27, beloved mother, taken too soon. No mention of family, as if he'd never existed. A librarian helped him access public records. Lisa's name appeared in tenant disputes, late rent, eviction notices. She'd fought to keep a roof over Ben's head, borrowing from payday lenders. David's throat tightened. He'd been rebuilding his business while his daughter scraped by. Can you make up for years you didn't know you owed? He found a social media profile, Lisa's last post, a photo of Ben at a park, captioned, "My reason to keep going." David's eyes stung, the screen blurring. Back home, the house was too quiet. Karen had left that morning, her suitcase packed for her sister's in Portland. I need space, she'd said, her voice flat. You're choosing that kid over me. David hadn't argued she wasn't wrong. Seeing Ben, reading Lisa's letters, had shifted something in him. But Karen's absence left a void, their 3 years of stability unraveling. Would you risk a marriage for a child you barely know? Judy came over, bringing a box of Lisa's things from Seattle. The social worker sent these, she said, setting it on the table. Inside were photos, Ben's drawings, a worn stuffed bear. David lifted a journal, its pages filled with Lisa's handwriting. Ben's first word was Mama, she wrote. I'm tired, but he's worth it. Another entry, dated 2 years ago, tried Dad again. No answer. Guess I'm on my own. David's hands trembled, guilt clawing at him. You could be been there, Judy said, her voice low but cutting. She needed you, David. He nodded, unable to meet her eyes. I know. I failed her. Judy softened, touching his arm. You can't change that. But Ben's here now. Don't fail him too. Her words were a plea, but David felt the weight of Spokane's eyes too. Neighbors had started whispering, their stares cold at the grocery store. Heard he's abandoning his grandson, one said, loud enough to sting. What would you do if your town judged your choice? David visited Ben again, this time at a park with Ms. Carter. Ben ran to a slide, his laughter bright but fleeting. Do you have a dog? He asked, swinging. David shook his head. Not yet. You like dogs? Ben nodded, then grew quiet. Mom said I'd have a family someday. David's heart twisted. He wanted to promise Ben a home, but Karen's warning held him back. Can you make a promise you're not sure you'll keep? That evening, David called Karen, hoping to bridge the gap. I'm trying to figure this out, he said. Her voice was distant. Figure it out without me, David. I'm not coming back if that kid's there. The line went quiet, and David felt the life he'd built slipping away. He opened Lisa's journal again, reading until dawn. Her words painted a woman he'd never known, resilient, flawed, devoted to Ben. David wondered if he could be the father she needed, the grandfather Ben deserved. How do you become family to someone you've just met? The Spokane Valley stretched wide under a November sky, its fields golden but brittle with frost. David Larson stood at the edge of Manitou Park, watching Ben toss pebbles into a pond. The boy's small frame was bundled in a borrowed jacket, his brown curls peeking from a knit cap. It was their first full week together, a trial run, Ms. Carter had called it, to see if David could handle custody. Ben's laughter as a pebble skipped twice felt like a fragile gift, one David wasn't sure he deserved. Can you become a parent to a child you've only just met? The week had started unevenly. Ben was quiet, his question simple but piercing. Why don't you have my mom's pictures? David had fumbled, showing him an old photo of Lisa at 10, her grin wide at a fair. Ben traced her face, silent, and David felt the gap of years he couldn't bridge. At home, he set up a cot in the guest room, Karen's absence a constant shadow. Her clothes were gone, her side of the bed untouched. 2 days ago, a courier had delivered divorce papers, Karen's signature sharp and final. Irreconcilable differences, the document read, but David knew it was Ben or his choice to try. He'd taken Ben fishing at Liberty Lake, a spot he'd loved as a kid. The boy was clumsy with the rod, but his eyes lit up when David baited the hook. Mom said fish are fast, Ben said, squinting at the water. David nodded, his throat tight. She was right. Your mom knew a lot. They caught nothing, but Ben's chatter about bugs, trucks, a dog he wanted eased the ache in David's chest. For a moment, he was just a man with a kid, not a grandfather wrestling with guilt. Would you hold on to a moment like that, knowing it might not last? But Spokane wasn't kind. At the grocery store, a neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, cornered him. Heard you're taking in that boy, she said, her tone sharp. After abandoning his mother, some nerve. David gripped the cart, Ben tugging his sleeve, oblivious. Just doing what's right, he muttered, but her stare followed him out. The whispers were everywhere: church, the hardware store, even his crew at the construction site. Larson's playing hero now, one said, loud enough to sting. What would you do if your town turned against you for trying to make amends? Judy came by midweek, her SUV loaded with Ben's clothes and toys from Seattle. She watched Ben play in the yard, her expression soft but guarded. He's settling in, she said, handing David a coffee. But you look like hell. David managed a half smile. Karen's gone. Filed for divorce. Judy's eyes narrowed. Her choice, not yours. You're doing the hard thing, David. That counts. But her words didn't erase the doubt. Karen had been his anchor, her practicality balancing his impulsiveness. Without her, the house felt like a shell. Over dinner spaghetti, Ben's favorite, Judy's tone shifted. You need to know something, she said, waiting until Ben was in bed. Lisa came here, 6 years ago. Pregnant, broke, begging for help. David's fork stopped. Here to Spokane. Judy nodded, her voice low. She stood in this kitchen, asking for you. You were at some conference with Karen. I called you, left a message. You never called back. David's mind raced, landing on a vague memory of voicemail he'd deleted, too busy to listen. I didn't know, he said, but the excuse felt hollow. Judy's eyes were steel. She waited 2 days, David. Slept on my couch, hoping you'd show. When you didn't, she left. Said she'd manage alone. The words cut deeper than Karen's papers. Lisa, pregnant with Ben, had reached out, and he turned away. What would you do if you learned you'd failed someone who needed you most? David's hands shook, the weight of his absence crushing. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Judy sighed. I tried. You weren't ready to hear it? But Ben's here now. Don't make the same mistake. The next day, David took Ben to school, a temporary enrollment Ms. Carter had arranged. Ben clung to his hand, nervous but brave. Will you be here later? He asked, his eyes wide. David nodded, kneeling. Right here, buddy. Watching Ben disappear into the classroom, David felt a flicker of purpose, but it was fleeting. At home, he found a note from Karen, slipped through the mail slot. I'm sorry, but I can't do this. Good luck. No signature, just finality. That night, David sat with Lisa's journal, Ben asleep upstairs. Her words painted a life of struggle, but also love for Ben, for small moments like park picnics. I wish Dad could see him, she'd written. David closed the book, his eyes burning. He'd failed Lisa, but Ben was a chance to try again. Can you rebuild a family after breaking it? The question lingered as he looked at Ben's stuffed bear, left on the couch, a reminder of the boy who might call this home. That's David's story, choosing his grandson Ben over his marriage, risking everything for a boy he never knew. Would you take in a child like David did, or protect your own life like Karen? What tough family choices have you faced? Drop your thoughts below, hit like and subscribe for more Reddit-inspired dramas.